welcome back to Advanced Studio Classroom. This is the first day of a new month, and we're not going to play any jokes on you today. It's April 1st, but we're not having April 1st jokes in the studio. Right, Kevin?
Okay, if you say so.
Okay, Kevin is here with us today. Also, Tara is in the studio, and Yvonne. Welcome to the month of April, teachers.
Thank you. Welcome, students.
And my name is John, and today we're beginning a new lesson, a new article. You can find it on page 32 in your April Studio Classroom magazine. Kevin, what's the title of the article, and what's the article about?
The title is A New Europe, and it's all about what's happening in Europe and how the countries are coming together as one.
Kevin, have you noticed a lot of news about Europe over the last half year or so, more so than usual?
I think so, because recently they adopted a new currency, the euro, which many of the countries in Europe now use. And so I think that and some other things have brought it into the news more.
That was really big news, and some of our listeners may be wondering, what's this euro all about? What's going on over in Europe anyway? I don't think we have all the answers, but I think we can have a good discussion of the question and maybe learn some new things. Tara, have you ever been to Europe?
I have, John. I visited Germany and a little bit of the Netherlands.
Did you like it there?
I did. I liked it very much. It was very beautiful.
Yeah, Europe is a beautiful continent. And Yvonne, I know that you have lived in Europe. How long were you there altogether?
It's about 3.5 years.
In Switzerland and anywhere else?
France.
And France.
Yeah.
Parlez-vous français?
Oui, je parle.
Ah, very good. I just asked Yvonne if she speaks French, and she says, yes, I do. All right, shall we do the rest of the program in French, Yvonne?
Well, we just stay with English. That'll be fine.
That would be a disaster because I forget most of my French. Well, let's take a look at the introductory paragraph. Kevin, I wonder if you could read that, please.
Since World War II, Europe has been in the process of reshaping itself. Its people, believing that only unity can ensure strength, prosperity, and peace on their continent, has slowly but surely been coming together. Recent events have brought the dream of a new Europe, a superstate rivaling the United States in power, wealth, and stature, closer to reality.
All right, so this kind of tells us in very general terms what has been going on in Europe. What has Europe been in the process of doing, Tara?
It says it's been in the process of reshaping itself. And I think we can see that in two ways. We see that Europe has reshaped itself physically. Countries and borders have changed, especially since the breakup of the Soviet Union of Russia. And so we have new borders, and with the wars in Bosnia and that area, we have new borders, new countries outlined, and also socially, as they're coming together, trying to create this European Union as one, to work as one group in world affairs.
Now, Kevin, why do you suppose this process has been going on, especially since World War II?
Well, after the war, Europe had to kind of come together to rebuild because a lot of damage was done during the war, and I think people were tired of wars, and they wanted to try to work together instead.
It was the second huge war in less than 50 years. There was the First World War and then the Second World War, and after the Second World War, people were thinking, we don't want this to ever happen again. This horrible thing that we had twice now on our continent, we have to prevent. And a lot of people began talking and saying, well, the only way that we can prevent another war like this from happening is to get closer together. The people believe that only unity can ensure strength, prosperity, and peace on their continent. Now, whether that's a correct thought or not, and a correct strategy for solving the problems in Europe, time will tell. But I think a lot of people in Europe, the generation that lived through the war, after the war, decided we must prevent this somehow. And the process that they're in right now is partly to prevent World War III taking place in Europe. And so slowly but surely, Europe has been coming together. When something happens slowly but surely, it means it's not happening quickly, but it is definitely happening. It may take a long time, but wait, it will happen. So, what have recent events done, Tara?
Well, recent events have brought this dream of a new Europe closer to reality.
And what is this new Europe, the shape or the idea of the new Europe?
It's an idea of a superstate, or almost working as one nation together, and it says that this would rival the United States in power, wealth, and structure.
Stature.
Stature, excuse me.
Right, okay. Similar words, but not quite the same. So some dreamers in Europe want a new super state in Europe. What is the greatest or the most powerful country in the world today, Kevin?
The United States. And so they want to be as powerful or as important as the United States. They want to rival us.
Now, speaking as an American, Kevin, do you think that could be possible? That another country or a super state could rival the United States?
Sure, of course.
Very nice of you to say so. Okay. Well, they're bringing this closer to reality, and perhaps the European superstate will rival the United States. It will come close to the power, the wealth, and the stature of the United States. Time will tell. Well, let's before we go on, let's listen to this.
It's time for a change.
What? What do you mean?
Europe, we need to reshape ourselves.
What? Change the shape of Europe? Change the shape of the continent? That won't be easy.
No, not the shape of the continent, the shape of the people.
Oh, change the shape of the people. You mean put everyone on a diet?
No, I mean we have to have strength.
Oh, then we should all exercise.
No, what I mean is that Europe needs strength and prosperity and peace.
Oh, yeah. Well, why didn't you say so? I agree, but how?
Unity. That's how. We need unity.
Yes, of course, that's it.
And I have a dream.
A dream?
Yes, the dream of a new Europe. A Europe rivaling the United States in power, wealth, and stature. A super state.
A super state? Wow, super idea.
We heard this word stature again. Kevin, what does that mean when someone or a country has stature?
It's talking about your level of respect. It's the degree to which other people admire you or regard you as an important person or country.
Okay, so we could say the United States is a country of great stature in the world, and Europe would like to be, to share that high stature as well. Yvonne, before we go on, do you have any comments about this paragraph?
Yeah, we're just looking into a few words. 我们看到第二行讲到这个 reshaping， to reshape 就是重新定型或重新定位的意思。到第三行 prosperity 这是很好的字，我们常常用到繁荣昌盛的意思。第四行 rivaling or to rival 就是抗争，跟某一个人争胜。第五行stature 这边是指重要性，或者说别人对你看重的这个程度。
Thank you, Yvonne. Now, Tara, let's go on. Can you read the next paragraph under a new economy?
On January 1st, 1999, 11 countries of the European Union took a decisive step on the road to continental consolidation. Austria, Belgium, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Spain officially adopted a new common currency, the euro. This move bound their economies together more tightly than ever. The four other European Union members, Britain, Denmark, Greece, and Sweden, remain outside Euroland but may eventually join.
Thank you, Tara. All right, so we see this article really divided into three parts, discussing the new economy of Europe, the new society in Europe, and the new future that Europe is facing. This first section is a new economy. And we know that there have been a lot of economic changes in Europe since World War II. But perhaps one of the most significant changes is what happened very recently, the adopting of the euro currency in Europe. Kevin, how many countries decided to take on this new currency?
11.
All
And
right.
there are 15, I think, members of the European Union, but only 11 of them so far have decided to adopt this new currency.
Now, the European Union is an association of countries in Europe, and you can see them in the map on page 33. And the European Union countries are highlighted, whereas the rest of the countries in Europe are not. And most of the EU countries are in Western Europe. Now, there are two categories of countries in the EU. One is the category of countries that have adopted the euro, and you can see those illustrated with a certain color on your map. And then you have the countries that belong to the EU, but they have not yet adopted the euro, and those countries are the United Kingdom, or Britain, Denmark, Sweden, and then way down in the southeast corner of Europe, Greece. And each of those countries has its own reasons for not joining Euroland, as we call it. Greece was not allowed to join because its economy is not yet strong enough. It didn't meet the standards or the criteria for membership in the euro. So 11 countries of the European Union decided they wanted to have a common currency, and 4 countries of the EU decided to stay out. Now we see the list of names of these countries. They took a decisive step, Tara, on the road to continental consolidation. What's a decisive step?
A decisive step is one that makes a strong decision. Decisive is closely linked to decision, and it means that they've decided and it's going to stand, and they've made that decision.
Right. A decisive step is one that really changes things. It's almost as though you've made a decision and you can't turn back. And they're on a road. There is a process going on, and it's been going on for a long time in Europe. Each year has brought Europe closer to this status of being a super state, and there have been small steps and large steps, but this step was a really decisive one, because the countries that have joined the euro aren't easily going to be able to pull out now. They've made a very important decision. And this is a road to continental consolidation. What's that all about, Kevin?
Consolidation is the noun that comes from the verb to consolidate, which is joining together or combining things to make them stronger.
All right, and this is what seems to be the process. Now, some people in Europe would say, no, that's not what's happening. All we have here is a free trade area. We're countries that have certain things in common, and we just want to have free trade and open borders. But it's not really a full consolidation. But other people say, oh, yes, it is. So there's some disagreement about which direction Europe is going in. These countries adopted a new common currency. So I've heard of adopting children before, Tara. That's when you take a child that is not your own child and make it a member of your own family. What does it mean to adopt a currency?
Well, I think it's a similar idea, because they've taken this currency, this form of money that's not their own, and they've made it their own, and they've all adopted the same one. So it's a common money or currency.
All right, and what did this do with their economies, Kevin?
It bound their economies together. And to bind is like to tie or to connect these countries more closely together economically.
All right, so since World War II, these countries have slowly been getting more involved with each other, getting closer together. They had this free trade zone in Europe. They had special agreements among each other. A lot of these countries now have open borders. They've made it easier to be neighbors to each other. But now they're being bound even more tightly together.
So, John, does this mean that if I take a trip to Europe this summer and I start in Italy and I exchange my money for currency there, so I don't have U.S. dollars, or I don't have Taiwan dollars anymore, I have their currency, that I can go from Italy to France to Spain or Germany, and I don't have to exchange again just that one time? They'll all accept the same money?
That's right.
Okay.
Makes it very convenient for travel.
This term Euroland, is that a term that's being used more and more? Or is that just your own term that you made up?
No, this is a term that's being used in the media. I don't think the European Union intended for this to be a term, but it describes that area in Europe where the euro has been adopted. So it's not the same as Europe, and it's not the same as the European Union. It is that part of Europe which is using the euro, and they're calling it Euroland. It sounds a bit funny, doesn't it? It sounds a little bit like Disneyland, Euroland. And perhaps some of these other countries eventually will join Euroland, but they haven't yet. All right, so their economies are being bound together more tightly. We see that Britain, Denmark, Greece, and Sweden remain outside, but they may eventually join. I think they're watching to see what's going to happen, and if they think it will be beneficial to be a member of Euroland, then they will join as well. I think it's going to be hard for them to stay out, actually. The tendency seems to be more and more consolidation. I'll be very interested to see what happens with Britain, because the British are very nationalistic, and they have that body of water, the English Channel, between Britain and Europe, and it may not be easy for them to join in with the rest of the Europe to this extent. Well, Yvonne, do you have any comments about this paragraph?
好，我们看到第5行讲这个 decisive 就是非常具有决定性的。第6行 consolidation 是合并或统一的意思。到下面第11行，我们看到这个动词 adopt，to adopt， 我们以前用到就是收养孩子的时候，你是用这个动词，它在这边呢，它是有采用或采纳的意思，通常就是使用一个新的方法。12行 12行这个动词 bound， 它的现在式应该是 bind bind， 就是束缚、约束或者是连结的意思。
All right, thank you, Yvonne. Now, I said that you can now use the euro throughout Europe. If you use a credit card in Europe, you will be billed in euros. Any electronic transactions take place in euros. If you're buying stock in a company in Europe, you pay in euros. Stocks are traded now in euros. They still have the national currencies, so you can still use francs in France and marks in Germany. But as we will see, the value of those national currencies is now fixed. The exchange rate is fixed, and so you can make a commitment to any one of those national currencies, and you know that it will not change in value relative to any of the other currencies in Euroland. And it's on a certain date, as we're about to find out, those national currencies are going to be withdrawn altogether. They're going to be taken away, and only the euro will remain. Well, let's go on now and read the next paragraph. Kevin, can you read, please? That's second column, line 6.
In order to participate, the countries of Euroland are giving up a portion of their own sovereignty. Their central banks no longer have the power to control money supply or set interest rates. Those decisions will now be made by the European Central Bank. All of the national currencies are now fixed in value relative to each other. They will rise or fall as one until July 1st, 2002, when they will cease to exist altogether. On that day, only the euro will remain.
All right, so this Euroland, this adopting of a new currency, requires a certain price to be able to participate. You can't just say, well, I'd like to join, now give me my euros. What is the price that the countries must pay in order to be participating, Tara?
It says that they're giving up some of their own sovereignty, which is sovereignty is a country's independence and the power to make decisions to affect their own government in their own country separately from others.
What do you think about that? If you were a citizen of one of these countries in Europe, would you be happy about your government giving up some sovereignty?
I think it would be a difficult decision to make because with that you have unification with some of these other countries, but there has been a long history in Europe of some rivalry between these countries and different cultural groups there, and I think it would be hard to trust some of that unification.
All right. It doesn't say that they have to give up all of their sovereignty, but they are giving up a portion of their sovereignty. For example, what, Kevin?
Their central banks no longer have the power to control their own money supply or set interest rates in their own country.
Now, this is a very important aspect of national sovereignty. If you don't have control over your own money supply to decide how much money to circulate in the market, then you have given up a certain amount of national power and decision-making ability, and also setting interest rates. These are two things that help countries to manage their own economies. And now that power has been taken away from the Euroland countries. Those decisions are going to be made where, Tara?
They will be made by the European Central Bank, which I understand is the bank of this European Union.
That's right. Now, representatives from each country will belong to the European Central Bank, plus there will be a board or a commission appointed to run the European Central Bank, but the European Central Bank will be making decisions based on the whole of Europe. It won't make decisions based on the needs of one nation or another. So, for example, if France feels that they need to raise interest rates, but the European Central Bank says we don't want to, then there's nothing France can do about it. They can try to influence the European Central Bank, but they cannot force any kind of decision.
Now, when you talk about interest rates, are you talking about like when you get a loan and how much extra interest you have to pay on that loan?
That's right. That's right. The government sets the basic rate for money in a country, and then on the basis of that rate, all of the banks and the other lending institutions set their rates. And it's a very important part of economic policy. And giving up that power is a major step. It's a decisive step. And now also the national currencies are fixed in value relative to each other. You won't find the exchange rate between the French currency and the German currency changing at all. They're locked together. And then on July 1st in the year 2002, you won't see the franc, the Deutschmark, what's the Spanish currency? I forget. But all of these these European currencies will disappear. You won't see them anymore. All that will remain is the euro. Yvonne?
好，我们回到第9行，看到这个生字 sovereignty， 它是指一个国家的这个主权。到第16行，他说这个 values are fixed， relative to each other。他这边讲到 relative to each other， 就是说它彼此的这个价值成为一种相对性的，并不是彼此在竞争，而是有这种连结性的关系。到第17行 ，to cease to 就是停止的意思。
All right. Well, Kevin, can you think of any reasons why these countries that have joined Euroland might want to do something like this? I can see some dangers, perhaps, in losing some national sovereignty, but what might be a positive aspect to it?
Well, there must be benefits, and perhaps one is a stronger economy. Separately, each of them, they may have their own struggles, but together, with trading and people going across the borders to buy things, perhaps could make everyone's economy stronger.
That's certainly true of the economically weaker countries in Europe, such as Spain and Portugal and perhaps Italy. It gives them a boost to join Euroland. But for countries like Germany, which have had a very strong economy and a very strong currency, a lot of Germans have been afraid that allowing other countries to share the same currency will weaken the German currency. And so different people have different opinions about the process that is taking place. Well, what we'd like to do now is give you a chance to listen to the reading once again of today's lesson. Follow along with us from the beginning. A new Europe. Since World War II, Europe has been in the process of reshaping itself. Its people, believing that only unity can ensure strength, prosperity, and peace on their continent, have slowly but surely been coming together. Recent events have brought the dream of a new Europe, a super-state rivaling the United States in power, wealth, and stature, closer to reality. A new economy. On January 1st, 1999, 11 countries of the European Union took a decisive step on the road to continental consolidation. Austria, Belgium, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Spain officially adopted a new common currency, the euro. This move bound their economies together more tightly than ever. The 4 other EU members, Britain, Denmark, Greece, and Sweden, remain outside Euroland, but may eventually join. In order to participate, the countries of Euroland are giving up a portion of their own sovereignty. Their central banks no longer have the power to control money supply or set interest rates. Those decisions will now be made by the European Central Bank. All of the national currencies are now fixed in value relative to each other. They will rise or fall as one until July 1st, 2002, when they will cease to exist altogether. On that day, only the euro will remain. Now, some people say it's very natural that Europe should have a common currency. If you look at the United States and consider the 50 states of the United States, what do you think it would be like, Kevin, if there were 50 different currencies in the United States?
Well, it would definitely make traveling from one state to another a little more difficult and complicated.
It would make commerce, interstate trading, any number of things would be more complicated. In fact, it's unimaginable, isn't it, to think of 50 different currencies in the United States. Well, Europeans make the argument and say, why should Europe be any different? Let's make things easier instead of harder. But there is a difference between the United States and Europe, isn't there, Tara? Maybe a lot of differences.
There is. I think one thing that hits me is that America and the United States started as one country and expanded, so people had more of one common sense of purpose and of mind when they spread out. Where Europe has been very different countries, different ethnic groups, different governments, and some rivals in there, as far back as we can go in history. And so there's a big history there of difference, I think.
That's right. And you might be able to make a single currency by agreeing together, but you can't take away the heritage, the background, the history, and people's loyalties just by making a new rule. So it will be very interesting to see how Europe does as it consolidates more and more, if people enjoy it and if it succeeds, or if maybe there will be some serious problems. We're going to find out more about the changes taking place in Europe. In our next program, we're going to talk about a new society. So don't miss that one. We're so glad you could be with us today. See you again soon. Goodbye, everyone.